Oklahoma Sooners beat Oklahoma State Saturday night. That makes 8 straight wins over their rivals from Stillwater, and it would mark another big win for Bob Stoops to add to his resume. If the Oklahoma State Cowboys, however, defeat Oklahoma on Saturday night, would it be the biggest victory in the history of Oklahoma State football? I've got to think it would be. Number one, it would mark their 11th win in school history, something no other Oklahoma State team has ever done before. And it would propel them to the Big 12 championship game, and it would give them a chance to win the Big 12 championship outright, something that they've never done before. So, no question, so much is at stake Saturday night in Bedlam. 13th ranked Oklahoma, 9th ranked Oklahoma State. Winner naturally goes to the Big 12 championship game. The game can be seen Saturday night, 7 o'clock kickoff on ABC. How big is this game? Well, of course, it's big statewide for bragging rights, and of course, the Big 12 South on the line. But nationally, it's a big game as well because ESPN College Gameday, for the 3rd time since 2004, will be in Stillwater to cover the Bedlam game. So ESPN's there. Of course, ABC will be there Saturday night. Yes, a lot is at stake. Of course, for the Sooners, nice win last week over the Baylor Bears. And yeah, people will continue to say, yeah, it's Baylor. What else would you expect? I don't care. Pretty impressive performance by the Sooners offensively, defensively, and special teams. A complete game for the Sooners, and a little bit of momentum entering Saturday night's game. Of course, Oklahoma State, with the exception of one game, all they've done is win. They came off an impressive performance against Kansas in the second half of that game after a bit of a sluggish start early on. And some things about Oklahoma State. We knew that entering this year, Kendall Hunter was going to be the meat and potatoes of that ground attack, and he's had a fantastic season. We also talk about the passing attack, and we're talking about the receiving core with Justin Blackmon. I think one of the biggest differences this year for Oklahoma State has been the offensive line. This was the one area that a lot of so-called experts thought that the Cowboys would be a little weakened because they lost so many terrific offensive linemen from the year before. After all, they were anchored by Russell Okung, who was a high first-round NFL draft pick just a few months ago. So naturally, Oklahoma State knew that it was going to be a rebuilding process up front. Well, these linemen have definitely been cohesive for the Cowboys. And we mentioned it back in August during my preview of Oklahoma State. Nick Martinez was going to be one of the keys because he would occupy the blind side of Brandon Weeden, the quarterback. He was going to play left tackle, the spot that Russell Okung had occupied and was an All-American as a result. Martinez this season has been consistent with his blocking, but also Jonathan Rush as well as Grant Gardner, the rest of that left side. They have been very productive. In fact, the entire Oklahoma State offensive line has been productive. I think that's been the biggest difference maker as far as why Oklahoma State has overachieved. Remember, most publications have the Cowboys picked to finish second to last this year in the Big 12 South, and even one publication I saw had them picked dead last. Well, Oklahoma State has already clinched at least a share of the Big 12 South championship and can win the championship for the South outright with the win over the Sooners, which will be their first over OU since 2002. So you know Boone Pickens Stadium on Saturday night is going to be crazy, to say the very least. To tell you the truth, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State really have a lot of things in common on the offensive side. What am I talking about? Well, for one, top 2 quarterbacks in the Big 12, passing-wise, are both from these teams. Of course, we talked about Brandon Weeden leading the Big 12 in passing. In my opinion, he should be first team all Big 12. Landry Jones is first passing yardage, right behind him at number 2. Then you also look at the receivers. Ryan Broyles, number 2 in the Big 12 in receiving yardage. And the only guy ahead of him, a guy who will probably be All-American this year, Justin Blackmon, who came out of nowhere and has been stellar for the Pokes, leading the Big 12 in receiving yardage in spite of the fact that he got suspended for a game a while back against Kansas State. Didn't matter statistically. He still has more receiving yardage than anybody else. Even more amazing. And both teams are loaded in the backfield. Kendall Hunter leading the Big 12 in rushing for the Cowboys. And you have a rusher in DeMarco Murray who's just a few yards away from another 1,000-yard rushing season for the Sooners. And both backfields have very young talent. For Oklahoma in the backfield, besides Murray, you have Brennan Clay as well as Roy Finch, two dynamic freshmen. But Oklahoma State has some new guys as well in the backfield with Joseph Randall as well as Jeremy Smith. So these teams offensively have a lot in common. Now defensively, both teams are not the best in the Big 12. I'd probably give the defensive edge to OU, but I would give the offensive edge to OSU just based upon the numbers and the projection that I've seen this year from both teams. But no question, Oklahoma State has the advantage because of the fact that they are at home. And we know that Oklahoma, when they play in the difficult environments, have a hard time executing. Not just winning, but just executing the basic things. And of course, people are going to say, well, they won in Baylor. They won at Waco. Well, it was a nice win. It was away from home, but it is not an intimidating place to play. You can get 10 to 12,000 of your own fans to make the trip from Norman to Waco and kind of dissipate that home field advantage from Baylor. It won't be that way Saturday night in Stillwater. A lot of orange. There'll be a few thousand OU fans there, but obviously not as big of an OU representation, and it will be a very intimidating place for the Sooners to play come Saturday night. And of course, past history would suggest that Stillwater has always been a thorn in Oklahoma's side, even when they've been able to win. It has not been easy at all in the Bob Stoops era to win in Stillwater, and of course 2002 the Sooners fell victim. So we're going to find out if Oklahoma can do to Oklahoma State what they've done to them the past 3 trips to Stillwater, and that is leave Stillwater with a victory. But for once, Oklahoma, for the first time in the Bob Stoops era, is an underdog to Oklahoma State. Last time I checked, the Sooners were, I think, an underdog by a couple of points. So certainly not insurmountable, but no question, Vegas thinks that OSU has the slight edge in this one, probably home field advantage, and plus the way they've been playing offensively this season. So we'll find out if Oklahoma can get another big win, and we're also going to find out if Oklahoma State can rise up to the challenge and finally knock off the Sooners, something they haven't done in 8 years, and we'll find out if this Oklahoma State team can get that 11th win, something they've never done before in the program's history. Let's go ahead and highlight the 4 keys of this game. Key number 1, the Oklahoma front 7. Being able to contain the ground attack and get to Brandon Weeden. They don't do this, Oklahoma's secondary is doomed from quarter 1 onward. Yes, you're going to give up some points, and yes, you are going to give up some yardage. Oklahoma State's offense is just too good to say we're going to stop you. They have too many options, too much speed, too skillful, but you have to avoid the big plays, and you need to get some stops because Oklahoma's offense is going to be able to score too, so it's important for Oklahoma's defense to have terrific containment. And another key for Oklahoma, how about the play of Jeremy Beal? In a year where the defensive line hasn't always been their best, Beal seems to be at his best. He leads the Big 12 in tackles for loss and also quarterback sacks. So Jeremy Beal, if he can have a nice game, boy, how would that help Oklahoma? Help him a lot. How about number 2, key number 2, the dynamic duo for the Sooners? Talking about the ground attack of DeMarco Murray as well as Roy Finch. Finch, by the way, will play in this game. Got knocked out of the Baylor game, but will play in this one. The diamond formation is something that we saw Oklahoma unveil last week against Baylor. Had some success. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of like a backfield in the shape of a diamond where you have 2 tailbacks on the side, or 2 tailbacks, and then you also have a fullback, and basically it's like a diamond shape, and that's something that we didn't see Oklahoma unveil earlier until this past Saturday. I would expect to see more of that. So a little more diversity for Oklahoma, and that's where you can have both Finch and Murray in the backfield at the same time. Key number 3, a special bedlam. The special teams can never leave that factor out. Both teams terrific punt returners in Josh Cooper for Oklahoma State, as well as Ryan Broyles, who burned Oklahoma State last year with a long punt return for a touchdown. So special teams and also place kicking as well. Will Oklahoma be consistent in the pressure cooker on the road? We'll find out if Stevens has the golden foot. And of course, Dan Bailey for Oklahoma State other than last week where he missed a couple of kicks into a swirling wind, has been very consistent, very productive for Oklahoma State. So could come down to kicking game. And then number 4, obviously the fourth quarter. Going to find out which team wants it the most down the stretch. The Sooners on the road in those clutch games against Missouri and A&M where the game was still in doubt. Well, they buckled under the pressure and couldn't deliver in the fourth quarter. So it's time to step it up in the fourth for Oklahoma. We'll find out which team is game come the final period of play. Final thoughts on this game. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be loud. It's going to be quite something else in Stillwater on Saturday night. Oklahoma, simply put, if they win, they will force a 3-way tie in the Big 12 South, assuming that A&M beats Texas on Thanksgiving night. 3-way tie comes down to the BCS, and Oklahoma should get the benefit of the doubt in the BCS to represent the South. Oklahoma State needs a win, of course, and they win the Big 12 South outright and represent the South in the Big 12 title game against either Missouri or Nebraska. I have done over 100 broadcasts since last year for the Oklahoma Sooner 56. Only one time during my 25 pregame shows that I've done up to this point have I picked against Oklahoma. That was Texas last year. As much as I want to pick Oklahoma to win this ball game and to make it 8 in a row over Oklahoma State, and even though I'll be rooting like crazy for the Crimson and Cream, just cannot pick Oklahoma this time. So for only the second time in the history of my show, I pick Oklahoma State to win 38-35 over the Sooners in what will be a classic Bedlam game. The home field advantage, the primetime lights, the Oklahoma State offense, and Oklahoma's continued inability in recent games to not win in rowdy environments, which this one will be. It might be the rowdiest of them all. It's a big reason why I cannot give the edge to Oklahoma State. So just by a whisker, Oklahoma State 38-35 over the Sooners. Hopefully I'm dead wrong on this prediction. I'll have my post game either late Saturday night or early Sunday morning.